This episode of The Republic is brought to you by Shutterstock.com. For 25% off your new account, head on over and use the offer code GameBreaker10 at checkout.
GameBreaker TV.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Republic 157. Today is October 4th, 2013. I am Mike Schaffnet. Gary Gannon is still in Europe, but will be returning next week. So this is it, the home stretch. Then I'm going back to my shows. Coming up tonight, an update arrives precisely when it means to. Oricon is pretty awesome, and we've got those class rep answers, all that and more. But first, joining us, writer of the Hyperspace Beacon, you guys know him, you guys love him, right here on The Republic, Mr. Larry Everett. How's it going, sir?
It's going all right. I had to rush to get here. It was weird timing on everything, but
yes,
everything's going to be straightened out next week.
Apologize
right.
for the random show times if you guys aren't watching this live, because we had to do this Friday at 1:30 at the moment, so I apologize if you guys didn't get to watch it live, but that's what videos on demand are for, so please, I'd say go watch this on GameBreaker, but you wouldn't be hearing this if you weren't watching it.
Continue to watch
Continue, exactly. All right, so let's move on and Let's get started and talk about update 2.4, because, you know, hey, it's arrived, right? But,
Absolutely.
Kind of arrived a little bit earlier than anticipated by some. Did someone spill their coffee and hit the big red release the launch button?
What somebody said, I think it was Cosmic Engine actually said the funniest thing. He said that there was one guy, some intern or something like that, who had his finger on the enter button that sent the launch key, and somehow somebody bumped into Damian Schubert, who was holding one of the awards that SWTOR had won at the beginning of when it launched, and it flew out of his hand and hit the intern in the back of the head, and he accidentally hit the enter button, and it launched 2.4 a day before it was supposed to.
Way to go. Now, I mean, I'm no game developer, but I would have thought releasing a patch early would be next to impossible, just based on all the delays that we get. I mean, early? Wow. What are they doing right over there?
Well, actually, what happened is that the content, so the client side content, was ready to go, and it apparently was just sitting in the queue, and somehow got pushed out early. I don't know how it got pushed out early. They didn't obviously give the details of that. That part of it got pushed out early. The server side of everything was not pushed out. And so, therefore, for about an hour or so of time, there was, if you had logged in through the launcher at that particular time, you updated the game, but you couldn't log in because the client didn't match the server. And so, yeah, it caused a little bit of a headache for those guys that logged in during that time period. But fortunately, I mean, Courtney Woods got on. I think it was like 3:45 in the afternoon my time, and said, "Hey, guess what? We this got pushed out early. Didn't intend to. Don't log in if you don't have to, and then we'll get this fixed as soon as possible." And then an hour later, it was fixed and all taken care of. Which I gotta hand it to him for that, because not only did they have to reset everything, they also had to write new code and whatnot so that those guys that did accidentally log in, their client would reapply the old patch. So you have to hand it to him for that, even though it was a mistake, pretty huge mistake at the beginning.
What happened to the people who had downloaded this? Were they able to play?
If they downloaded during that period of time, they were not able to play initially. Once the fix was pushed out, what, like I said, was about an hour-ish after the mistake was found. So they were able to repatch everything. Now it was, from my understanding, a bigger patch, like almost a 12 gig patch, but they were able to download it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who out there is able to download 12 gigabytes in an hour unless you're working from a T1 line? But
yeah, so I mean, it took a little bit long, but they were able to. I mean, I know that on my connection, which I know I have a little bit better connection than some people, but I would be able to do the 12 gig patch in just like a couple of hours. So they couldn't possibly have played that night.
Did things get back on track and working once the actual release? You kind of said that they did really good damage control, right?
They did do really good damage control. All things considered, I mean, it was unfortunate. I mean, the amount of people that were actually affected, I'm not sure exactly if that was a large amount of people. I know a lot of people were complaining, but when given the size of the community, I think it was relatively small, the number of people that were connected having issues because of the time of day that it happened. It happened before prime time, and so yeah, I don't know. I think it was pretty bad for those guys that it did affect. However, that being said, they did turn around and fix it pretty quickly.
So let's move on to some good news here, because we talked a little bit about the new planet Oricon last week. You're a big fan. How's the community looking at this planet so far?
I think most people are looking at it pretty positively. I think as far as I think like I said, the biggest, like I said last week, and like I've said in Hyperspace Weekends, I think the biggest and most worthwhile thing in on Oricon is actually the story. The story, which is like the whole. I haven't, and I know this question we have saved for later, but I'm going to say it anyway. As far as the story is concerned, I think it's a miniature McKeb as far as the quality of story. I think they did a really good job. You
mean Mike B, right?
Yeah, Mike B. Sorry,
Mike B. Yeah.
I needed a miniature Mike B.
I needed to clarify for everybody out there. It's not McKeb, it's Mike B. Just so everyone out there knows. So it's a miniature one, and that's kind of how it compares. Is it? Because the big difference here was McKeb was we had to pay for it in the expansion.
Right. Yeah. It does. I mean, obviously you didn't have to pay for this one. This is level 55 content. You don't have to pay for. Especially if you're a subscriber, you can get a level 55 with, without any extra cost beyond your subscription. And you can go to McKeb. It gives away some pretty decent gear. If you have like a fresh 55 or a pretty fresh 55, it'll give you some pretty decent gear. I think it's level 50. I'm sorry, 60. 66 level gear, I believe, which is good, pretty good stuff. It's almost, I mean, really, you can jump once you finish the Oricon quests, the main quests. You could probably jump right into the raids, at least the story mode version raids, with the gear that you get from doing the story on Oricon. And then on top of that, the daily reps has some cool stuff, and we've kind of talked about this. That they have a new Tauntaun mount, which is awesome. They have a black red dye, which I am trying to get myself, because that's one of the ways I make money is that. But the only thing that I really don't like about McKeb, I said McKeb, Oricon, is that you can't. It's kind of difficult to get around without aggroing everything on that planet. Because you have small sections where there's no mobs, and at some points as far as the storyline is concerned, it gets a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? Monotonous, because you go out, you do a thing here, you do a thing up there, and then you got to go back to the beginning. Then you go do a thing here, you do a thing over there, you go back to the beginning. Then you do a thing over here, you do a thing over here, and then you go back to the beginning. And having to do that gets a little bit monotonous, but thankfully, as far as the dailies are concerned, you don't have to do that. The dailies are all given to you once, and you can go around and just do all of them and then go back. So
Interesting.
it's give and take. Give and take.
Now, probably the highlightiest highlight of 2.4 is the addition of 4v4 arenas. I can't remember if you're a big PvP guy or not, Larry. I think you're more lore.
I do PvP, mind you, but I don't. I'm not a huge PvP guy, especially in this particular game.
Have you had a chance? Have you had a chance to check out any of the arenas, or are you just kind of avoiding them?
No, I have. I've actually. I have done on several characters since 2.4 came out. I've done at least the weekly on several characters with PvP, which is approximately 15 matches. And I think, as far as the arenas are concerned, I got about every third Warzone that I got into was an arena, and I actually like them quite a bit. I was really kind of surprised at how much I like them.
So which one was your favorite?
I think honestly so far the one that I like the most is the one that happens on the orbital station, which is the one that used to be Space Garage. Believe it or not, that one's actually my favorite. I think that has enough line of sight and and enough open area to make it interesting. The Tatooine one is kind of interesting as well because there's a couple of bottlenecks, which makes like there's a hut that sits like not Jabba the Hutt, like a hut that you live in, that sits over to the side, and you can actually bottleneck people by running them behind the hut. And so if you got the 4 people coming out or coming towards you behind that hut, they get bottlenecked, and you can just annihilate them, even with like AOEs and things along that line. And believe it or not, I have been surprised myself. I've actually won most of my arenas. I think I've lost 4 of them, and so I think they're great. They're awesome for my class, at least for a Marauder.
How do you think that the PvP community is really kind of taking to them, because they have been waiting a very long time to finally get some content? So is this something that they're relatively happy with?
I think there is a bit of a split from what I've seen in the PvP community. I'm not saying that I think that they like them. The general reception of the arenas themselves, I think they are fond of them. Number one, I mean, it's brand new content for them, which they haven't seen in almost a year. And number two, it's a deathmatch, which is something that has been missing from PvP in general in TOR. There hasn't really been any deathmatch kind of PvP. It's all been objective-based PvP. However, that being said, I think the guys that do enjoy objective-based PvP, I think that they're complaining that this was the only thing that was released was the deathmatch stuff. Yeah, I think they would
can never please everyone.
I know, right? But I think, yeah. Well, they do kind of have a point. I mean, because they have not seen anything for, like I said, a year, and so I understand their frustration is because they've been running the same, for matches for over a year now, and the maps are memorized to death.
Right.
And there's nothing new coming out of it. So I understand their frustration. However, that being said, the arenas are a breath of fresh air, to be honest, to PvP. And every time I get one pop up in the regular queue, I'm excited for it because it's new, and it's great for my class for one. I love it for the Marauder. Oh my gosh, it is so awesome because it's like the arenas seem to be meant for the Marauder class. To be honest.
Now, there also have actually been some complaints about the queue system, though, right? What's going on there?
Yes. The biggest issues with that people are complaining about is that you can't just queue up for the arenas. Like, I would just queue up for the arenas. Oh, this is another thing. The arenas are fast. You're not, if you're going to lose a match, you're only going to be waiting around to lose for a few minutes. Whereas with the objective-based ones, you could know like within the first couple minutes or so that you're going to lose, and you have to wait like 15 minutes or whatever in order to actually lose. And so this, if you're going to lose, it's going to be just a couple of minutes. But anyway, the complaint is that you can't queue up for just arenas. You can't queue up for just objective-based PvP. So, which is completely understandable that you're sitting in a queue and you don't know what you're going to get. And there are definite, and arenas and the objective-based PvP definitely appeal to do two different kinds of audiences.
Definitely.
And to kind of lump them together from a audience perspective doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Would you like to see that change, though? You know, maybe a way to queue for 8v8 or 4v4 separately, or do you think that the queue would this ultimately affect the queue times?
You know, I don't know. I don't think it'll affect the queue times as much as we'd possibly think. I think that there is enough people that are interested in still doing the 8v8 that we're going to see those queue pops fast enough. And also with the arenas are so stinking fast that I think that one of the things with the arenas is that you have to have a specific grouping. Like you have to have somebody that's like tank-ish, or at least a tank-ish class, and then heal class, and then two DPS kind of classes, and before it actually queues you up. And I think that with that stipulation, you're probably going to see the same queue times on both of them if you're consistently on your server. It all obviously depends on your server, but I think generally speaking, you'll see about the same queue times between arenas and between the objective-based PvP. And like I said, the arenas are fast. I mean, I don't see why people wouldn't queue up for both, but it'd be nice to be given the choice.
Right. Let's shift shift focus real quick over to operations. But before I do, I want to tell you guys about a sponsor that we have here at GameBreaker that we use all the time. It's Shutterstock.com. Shutterstock offers over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips that can really help you take your creative projects to the next level. You can inject your websites with some instant credibility, and all you have to do is just sign up and start using Shutterstock. You know, if you need still photography or stock footage, art assets for your website, or maybe you're just trying to create a YouTube channel, Shutterstock offers a lot of options that can really set you aside from everybody out there who, I mean, it's just commonplace. If you want to be a part of the gaming industry, everybody has a YouTube channel. So set yourself apart from everyone else by using some assets from Shutterstock. You know, they're all over the place too. It's not even just, our internet media. They're in just traditional media, the creative industry. Showtime has a show called Dexter. For those of you who know, and those of you who maybe don't know, I was watching recently and actually found this exact graphic in the last 2 episodes of Dexter. So if you guys keep your eyes open, I promise you can find Shutterstock assets all over the place, which just, further enforces how much they're actually used in the creative industry. If you guys are looking for images with a certain color palette, their tool called Spectrum can actually handle that as well. You just have to define the keywords and the images that you're looking for and choose the color, and you can get a massive selection of imagery to choose from, whether it be looking for green or maybe you're looking for something a little bit more yellow. All you got to do is just grab this slider up here and you get a whole bunch of different options that just fit kind of the color that you're looking for. You can try Shutterstock today without using a credit card by heading over to Shutterstock.com and signing up for a free account. But once you're ready to check out, make sure to use the offer code GameBreaker10 and you'll get 25% off your new account. All right, let's take a look at operations. There's new operations that have been added. Larry, have you had a chance to formulate an opinion about those yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I've both played the operations, and I've also watched a bunch of some of the top-rated guilds. I've watched them on Twitch and whatnot play even the hard mode operations, and I know my group running it on Wednesday, we actually live streamed that, and it was a lot of fun. We were, although that being said, we did run story mode. We were running with 14 people out of 16, so we were running 15, or excuse me, 13 people out of 16. We were 3 people short, and we were still able to get through up to the last boss within a couple hours. We could have done the last boss, but we ran out of time. We just everybody had to go. And yes, Tenebrous, I did watch you guys. He's in Death and Taxes. I watched that. Yeah, it was really cool. I'm actually surprised that one of the things that I'm really surprised with is the amount of mechanics and the shift that BioWare seemed to take with this particular raid from, let's say, Terror from Beyond, where Terror from Beyond, some of the bosses were pretty much just obviously there was other mechanics. I don't want to make it too simplified, but seemed to be just a kind of a DPS race. Can you get this guy to run out of health before he enrages? This is really what it boiled down to. Whereas the new ones, there is a lot of extra mechanics involved, a lot of maneuvering, and the biggest one that I really liked was I want to say it's Dreadmaster Tyrants. I think is how you say that. He disappears and reappears in different spots on the map, and then at the same time that some random person will get a big reticle that'll appear underneath them, and wherever they move, that reticle will go as well. But as they move, the reticle shrinks, and when that it shrinks all the way down to the bottom, whatever square you're standing on disappears, and you have to, as you're moving around trying to fight this guy, you have to avoid the missing blocks. And so there's a lot of okay, what would be the most advantageous block to get rid of, and can I get over there fast enough, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of other mechanics involved. So now, I'm really like that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, now there's no new flashpoints in this update.
That's correct.
Other than that, new rep grinds, gear sets, mounts, but any significant class changes that we should really kind of sit down and talk about?
I know some things have happened with the bounty hunter and the trooper. However, I'm not sure exactly what it is. I don't have a lot of experience. That's the one class that I really have very little experience in, and I am not sure how the changes actually affect them. We might have to ask Laura next week.
What about what about expecting more significant changes in 2.5 or 2.6? That's kind of what we're expecting, right?
Yeah. Any big significant changes are not going to happen until these either 2.5 or 2.6 or even later than that, possibly with some of the class changes. I'm honestly hoping to see, like for instance, I think the biggest one that from the PvE rating perspective, I think the biggest one that we need to see like almost immediately, hopefully in 2.5, is going to be changes with the Shadow and Assassin classes, because as of right now, their damage mitigation, and we'll talk. This is actually we'll talk about this later when we get to the class questions. But their damage mitigation needs a lot of work right now, because it's very spiky. It's all kind of heal based versus mitigation based, and so therefore it's fallen a bit short. It's difficult to heal through, and it's almost preferred to take somebody else instead of an assassin tank at this moment.
Now we can die lore based gear, which obviously you've talked about and you're excited about, but yes. 8v8 ranked war zones have actually been removed, and we knew this was coming, but I mean it kind of sucks to see. You don't really see patches where they remove content very often.
Right.
So it's kind of sad.
You know, I didn't think that it would be an issue. I mean, really, I started reading some of the reactions of people that were directly affected by it. Now, granted, we are talking about a small segment of the population of the game. However, that being said, I mean, why shouldn't they be? Why shouldn't they be represented? Why do we have to remove this content? Is really what it boils down to. I know I said before that I thought they should just get rid of PvP and just stop doing what they're doing and work on something. But it is a sad thing to see content disappear, and I would never think that we'd want to completely get rid of content. Maybe just stop working on it if it's not working. You know what I mean? If it's not going in the direction you want it to, I can see them just not working on that side of it. But it is, I don't know. I still think they probably should have kept it around. If they're going to continue with the arenas, keep the objective-based PvP as well. Just put two different queues. I mean, really, it was already in place. Just add a new one. Yeah.
So moving on to a little bit of bad news bears here. There were some bugs that actually caused the problem. Just a quick look at the dev tracker. Apparently, there were quite a lot of them. Correct?
There were quite a few of them. Trying to find which one was my favorite here. I know that the funniest one, when like really that's a bug. Is that one of the specifically the agent and the scout, or excuse me, the smuggler were missing their top end gear. It was gone. The elite vendor didn't have gear on it. It had the old gear, I think. And what? Why? How do you miss that? I mean, even on because it was on Test Center. I know it's not simply copy and paste, but it kind of is in this case. It's like, oh, you forgot to hit Control V whenever you went over to the live server. I don't know. That was kind of a weird one. Why that even happened?
Is this at this point? Is this just kind of par for the course with the big patch? Is it common to see this many bugs, or does this one seem overly bug filled?
This, in comparison to the past ones, seems to be a little bit more. Okay, more. It's not. I wouldn't call them game breaking bugs, because there have been in the past some game breaking bugs. I mean, for instance, this one just seems to be more involved. I mean, like, it's spread out all over the place. And I mean, even the new operations, which were working on Test Center, the last boss couldn't be completed in the Dread Fortress one, not Dread Fortress, Dread Palace. You couldn't complete the operation, so it really kind of tied up all of the progression guilds. Couldn't do it. They couldn't finish. They couldn't finish until they patched it, which they just patched it yesterday.
Could this have anything to do with the accidental release?
I don't think it's related. I don't think it's related, but maybe it is. I don't know.
What was the testing participation, I guess, for this patch? Was it just lower than average that all these bugs kind of slipped through? Where did the ball get dropped then, I guess?
Well, like I said, even with the operation was running fine. For instance, that bug, the operation was running fine on Test Center. So something happened between from the end of testing, which was about a week before launch of the patch, and the actual launch of it. So something happened in the interim there that bugged that out. Now, that being said, the live servers are slightly different than the testing servers. So, I mean, it's not like they absolutely copy and paste what is on the test server to the live server. There is some adjustments that go on. Maybe there was something that happened. Uh, I don't know. And so I don't think it's lack of testing as far as that's concerned. I think that these were just kind of oversights between between testing and live. I think we had enough testing on that some of these just shouldn't have existed. For instance, the Dread Palace one shouldn't have existed. Neither should it the vendor issues, because that wasn't an issue on Test Center either. So I'm not sure.
Let's pivot real quick and talk about the class rep Q&A that we should have gotten last week.
Right.
But to be fair, I mean, the answers that came out were really, really long and just paragraphs and paragraphs. Is this kind of the Q&A that you want to see more often here? We haven't had one in a very long time, so it's very nice that it kind of comes out like this. But you know, hopefully that when it returns again, it kind of continues to look like it finishes, because I think a lot of people don't want to see the whole heel to full fiasco again. So I don't know.
Right.
What do you more is better, essentially, is I guess what I'm getting at.
Yeah, well, it more can be better, absolutely, and and definitely more communication in general is better. But that being said, I think that this was kind of twofold. I don't necessarily think that the length was necessarily amazing, although it was good to have that much communication. However, it is possible, like the last set of questions that were answered, they were a little bit shorter, but they were just fine as far as their answers were concerned. This one, I liked these answers this time mostly, and believe it or not, it's not because of the answers necessarily themselves. It was because the questions were done really, really well, and especially like the power tech questions were done. I mean, for future reps, take a look at the power tech questions and do them that way. I know they were long and extensive, but if a dev could look at that and focus on just the right spots of it and know exactly what he's getting into and what the concerns are, what the actual question is, and what led up to that question, I think that was the best format. I said power tech. What? The mercenary one. Sorry. Those were the best questions. Was that one?
So let's start somewhere. Let's start with the mercenary side of things. You know, BioWare feels that mercenary DPS is in a really good place, but that they could bring more utility to raids, and kind of competing classes are doing a little bit more damage than they would like. So basically, nerf everyone else, right? That's the solution. Don't buff one, nerf everyone else.
It's nerf Marauders. That's what I heard, is nerf Marauders. I'm very bummed about that one. But actually, that being said, I think I have seen mercenaries put out some really incredible DPS in raids. They fare fairly well, and pretty equally, I should say, as far as DPS is concerned, in PvP as well. So they're probably, I think, as far as everything concerned, mercenaries are probably the most balanced balanced DPS when compared to everybody else, because you have classes like snipers and marauders that just blow everybody out of the water. And then you have ones like sorks who are struggling and obviously and sorks and operatives that are struggling as far as overall DPS is concerned. And so mercenaries fall like right in the middle there. And I think that because one of the reasons why right now marauders and snipers are the preferred classes for raids is because in a raid you're kind of looking for that pure DPS because that's the way that the raids are are
Structured or
yeah,
balanced.
structured and yeah, is that it works best right now for you to have pure DPS doing just DPS and having having heals do specifically just do heals and tanks just do tanking. That's why you're having issues with the assassin right now with some DPS mitigation. That's why snipers right now are the most sought after class for raids, and it's because utility right now doesn't play a whole lot. It's not really necessary really in a lot of the raids, and so I think with the new raids specific, I can't wait to see what the nightmare versions of these new raids look like. I'm thinking with these new raids that the emphasis isn't going to be as much on pure DPS, that the utilities that some of the other classes will be able to offer will make them a bit more viable in a raid group. Although that being said, mercenaries can put out some DPS. I mean, they're pretty darn good. I'm not saying for any raid group dump your mercenaries by any stretch, because they are pretty good at what they do, and it's just that I think that the other ones are a little overbalanced, if you will. Unfortunately, I didn't say that out loud. No, I take that back. Marauders are awesome. Don't change Marauders.
Now, BioWare actually also said in the future that they want to make the balance for the various DPS classes even more close together. You know what? I'd like to live on an island of diamonds.
That's right.
How about you? Would you like that?
I'm gold for me. An island of gold. Oh yeah, that would be awesome. I'm on board with that. I really don't know. It's really a hard balance when you think about it. I'm sure, Mike, you've run into it on the games you played that you run into situations where, okay, if we give this guy over here, if we up this guy's utility, but he has equal DPS as everybody else, you're going to pick the guy with better utility, right? However, if you then, to balance out that utility, you up another class's DPS, well, they're going to pick the higher DPS. And so it's kind of it's a really strange balancing game that is. I'm glad that I don't have to adjust for that. I'm glad I am not one of the developers going, okay, how do we balance all this stuff? But I think a good rule of thumb is to make DPS, generally speaking, even across the board, within your DPS classes, don't account for like a hybrid tax, because that's horrible when it comes to PvE. PvP is a little different situation, but it's horrible in PvE. And give everybody utility. Maybe make it slightly different utility, but give everybody utility. That way, you're not having to worry about balancing pure DPS to DPS plus utility.
How about on the healing side of things? I think everybody kind of seems to agree that they're a lot, they're viable endgame healers. They've been kind of discussing multi-target Kolto Shell internally, though. Would that be more along the lines of AoE healing?
Yes. That's actually, because as of right now, the weakest area that healers have, specifically merc healers, but also it falls under operative healers as well, is AoE healing. It is really, really tough, unless you're a Sorc who can just throw a puddle on the ground and everybody just runs through it and starts healing up. It's really, really tough to get AoE healing, because you're only affecting a small group of people and kind of a random group of people as well. I mean, you can target one person. This specific person's going to get a heal, but if there is, a cluster of 5 other people around you, only 3 of them, 3 random people in that group are actually going to get healed. So I think that they can improve that a little bit. I would like to see. I know they want to differentiate, between healing or sorcerer healing and mercenary healing. I know they want to do that, but it's really, really tough to do when you want both of them to be kind of viable in a similar area.
So looking ahead here, it kind of sounds like BioWare were a little bit afraid that mercenaries were going to be a big problem in PvP thanks to their heavy armor and their ranged abilities here.
Right.
It hasn't quite worked out that way, though, has it?
You know what? This was the one question in the whole, almost the whole thing that was like, really? Are they really having problems with that? Because I know during, and even during my latest round of PvP matches that I've done, I've been beating the heck out of some mercenary. Actually, it was a commando, which is the mirrored class to it. But beating the heck out of some commando, and they are just not losing health. You know, at least not at a significant rate. And I'm like, are they really having trouble? Because the guys, they are mitigating a lot of damage. Now, maybe they need some help mitigating, force damage or tech damage or something along that line. But as far as melee damage, which is what I generally output on in PvP, I'm not really noticing a problem. And so this was the one question that kind of struck me as kind of weird. And although they answered it, I got to give them props. They answered this question really, really well, and gave a lot more credence to the issues that the mercenaries are running into than I probably would have. So I give the developers props for that.
So I'm sure you don't like the fact that you know, when other classes like the Marauder are looked at with strong cooldowns, and they're kind of looked at trying to be balanced a little bit more. Does that seem like the right approach here, rather than just kind of throwing big, powerful cooldowns to everyone else? Makes a little bit of sense. Yeah. Instead of making it spiky, kind of bring the heavy cooldown damage down a little bit, maybe. I'm not sure. I know that, and actually they said this just in the chat room, and talking about when I was talking about my hitting hitting a mercenary, and there's not a lot of damage happening. He was saying that I was probably taunted, or or he was guarded, or something along that line, or both. And which I think that's the big key here, is that there is a rock paper scissors kind of thing involved here that I think was kind of missing in the whole question and answer as far as the PvP was concerned, is that you need the tank or whatever to guard you as a mercenary and also throw taunts out. It can't just be, so you need that team interaction and the team protecting each other. You can't just have one person one-on-one being able, if I'm a Marauder going after a mercenary, I should, because of rock paper scissors, I should be able to take him out rather quickly. However, because he has these other guys guarding him, that's where you get the extra mitigation, the extra help. And I don't think that giving cooldowns specifically for the mercenary is going to be the answer. I think what we need to possibly see is a little more cooperation, or maybe make, for instance, the some of the tanks, the PvP, make their bubbles that they put over people a little more resistant to damage, or something along that line. If we're noticing that certain classes are falling behind as far as time to kill and that sort of thing. Now, another thing here is BioWare is also considering adjusting the pushback and interrupt system, because obviously classes like the Merc with long channels get completely screwed by those abilities. So does this scare you a little at all? Or, it might be true that pushes and pulls and knockdowns are a lot of fun. So, I mean, I get where it's coming from, but you kind of want those because it feels really satisfying when you're able to interrupt.
Well, okay. There's a couple of things involved in this question, actually, but the pushbacks and interrupts are what you're looking at in pushbacks as far as those are concerned is when a cat's bar starts to go and you hit the guy really hard, that cast board jumps back a little bit and then starts going again. And that's what really they're talking about as far as pushbacks and interrupts. And there is long channels for these, and I would like to see some of that mitigated, because I understand why they have that there, but I can understand wanting to mitigate that some, even as somebody that that has to deal with the other end of that. I don't mind seeing that that adjusted, because right now, I mean, I can literally stop a I can almost literally stop as a marauder, because my I have a couple of interrupts, and I can literally stop a sork from healing. I mean, they'll get like one. There's only one heal that they'd be able to get off with me on their tail, and that's, I think that gives me a bit of an unfair advantage. They should be able to get off some sort of heal just by the sheer timing of everything. But because of pushbacks and because of the way I can interrupt things, I can literally stop a sork from healing. They can't heal, and I don't think that's fair, even from my perspective.
Let's move on to the shadow answers here. But before I do, I want to tell you guys about another sponsor of ours that we're happy to have here. And it's a great service that I highly recommend you guys check out, audible.com. If you guys are like me, if you guys are like Missy, if you guys are like a lot of the Game Breaker staff, you're very busy and you don't have a lot of time. And one of the first things I think a lot of people drop off is reading. And it's true that when you get really busy, you start kind of cutting out things that you're doing. But audible.com offers a great solution to this problem by offering a bunch of audiobooks that you can listen to while you're doing hundreds of other things. You can listen to it in the car. You can listen to it if you work out and you like to go running. You can listen to it while you're questing or maybe while you're raiding, if you'd rather listen to a book than your raid leader. There's tons of applications for when you can listen to Audible, and there's so many great books out there. One of the books that they have available for those of you guys who may be movie buffs, in about a month or so, I think early November, there's going to be a movie coming out called Ender's Game, which is a great sci-fi movie with Harrison Ford. And it's actually available in its novel form on Audible right now. It'll only take you 12 hours to complete. Now, I know that's a lot longer than a 3-hour movie, but if you go and listen to this, you can be that awesome person that as soon as the movie's over, you can turn to your friends and be like, you know what? The book was much better. Be informed today. You can head on over to Audible and sign up. If you guys head over to audible.com/gamebreaker, you can sign up for a free 30 days as well as get a free audiobook. And you can start listening to Ender's Game, or one of the hundreds of thousands of books that they have available right now. So head on over, audible.com/gamebreaker. All right. Let's take a look at these shadow answers. So BioWare and the class rep agree that shadows require less healing from outside sources, but take the most spike damage. Pretty much, it's kind of the eternal problem of evasion-based tanks here. I mean, that's what evasion tanks are.
To a point, they are. What it really boils down to, and is that, like I kind of hinted to earlier, is what it boils down to is they have self-healing. The shadows and assassins, they have self-healing. So they have certain abilities that whenever the ability ticks, then they get heals, and which works sort of, but I think what would be a better solution would be, and which is kind of what they hinted at in the answer, was damage mitigation versus direct healing. That way we're certain to know, kind of like just about with the other tank classes, we know that we're going to see this amount of mitigation versus right now it's kind of an RNG thing. We don't, as a healer, it makes it extremely difficult to know when you're going to need to heal a shadow tank right now, because it's there can be a time where they could drop like a rock, and you just have no recourse for it, and it makes it extremely difficult and unfun, actually.
In theory,
You
this
kind of
in theory this should fix the problem, and kind of bring it in line more to steady damage, right?
that is the theory. we hopefully they do a lot of testing on this. Hopefully they throw this up on the PTS when they actually do this kind of fix, and let us mess around with it. Let us try some different scenarios to see if we can get see if the spikiness is gone. And it is, and it's not. I think that we know, them being evasion tanks, that there is going to be a bit of spikiness, but because of the lack of damage mitigation, in which was, by the way, a PvP fix. PvP is a reason PvEers can't have nice things. Because it was a PvE fix or PvP fix, they had to adjust that, and it caused issues in PvE. So now we'll just have to test it. That's really what it boils down to. Hopefully it works, and it sounds, at least theoretically, it sounds like the right thing to do is to do damage mitigation.
Does
versus, healing.
Does this take away from what made shadow tanks so unique in the first place? I mean, I think that was why a lot of people rolled them, was because of this play style, and to have this changed effectively reinvents why they played that class.
Yeah, you got to look at if you look at the reason why they made those changes, it makes sense why those changes were made, and it's because the people were rolling, and they still kind of are, to be frank, rolling assassin tanks in a PvE scenario, and they were just absolutely dominating because the other classes could not damage them fast enough, and so the healing spikes and the damage mitigation that they currently had, it was too high in PvP, which and I completely agree that they should have been nerfed in some way. But what happened is that it hurt PvP by making those changes. And as actually Tenebris is saying in chat right now, is that over the long term, the self heals the self heals work, but it's still the spikiness, and he's also for a long term fight, something like a Juggernaut or a Power Tech are just, they can eat up more damage than what an Assassin or Shadow could heal.
Now, additionally here, through a talent in the balance skill tree, damage over time abilities will become uncleansable through standard cleanses. Now, this is going to be a huge change for PvP because there's obviously some damage buffs that need to go on the way. If you're taking away their avoidance, making it a little bit more mitigation than avoidance, you kind of got to, in turn, buff their damage, wouldn't you? And this might be giving them an uncleansable dot. It has to be massive for PvP.
Well, most of what you're looking for here, I'm not sure if they actually intend for this to be in the tanking tree, which is, hopefully it's not, really. I hope they don't intend to put this in the tanking tree. This is really a huge question that I run into, because one of my favorite specs for an assassin, and it is a madness spec, which is the balance spec on the Shadow. And that is actually, I love the way that plays. However, that being said, I am horrible at PvP in that spec. It is just not a good spec. I don't output enough damage. Some my abilities are kind of meh, that are kind of my would be my hard hitting. You know, a rogue type PvPer, you know, you're going to want to disappear and then backstab somebody really hard and then kind of run away and that kind of thing. Whereas the madness spec, you don't really get that hard hit that you would normally get out of a rogue type class. And but it's a dot spec, and it's really interesting the way it plays. It just is not viable in the long term. And I think that by adding an uncleansable element to some of the dots, it will help out the madness and balance spec tree in the long run. If it's just in that tree, if they start adding it to other trees too, or even to the sorcerer sage side of
well, and
the Inquisitor,
that's where it gets concerning, because if this works out, I think Blizzard has come out and said that they actually would extend it to other damage dealing classes as well. And then obviously, by doing that, you're eliminating the uniqueness that was coming to this ability for that class.
Right. I really hope that if they do extend it to other classes, I hope that they do it very, very sparingly, because because then you kind of get rid of the whole idea of cleansing dots in the first place. Why even have purge on your toolbar, really? Which, as a healer, or even somebody that's not healing, that can purge themselves. I mean, that being said, I do think that Annihilation Spec Marauders would be really nice to have, and I'm not just saying that because of Annihilation Spec Marauder, but I think that that would make them a little bit, step them up a little bit in their game, is to add this non-cleansable dot. But we'll see. I stick to the Madness balance spec right now. Get that one working right, and then we can talk about and see if we need to add this to the other classes.
Larry Everett, you can follow him right down there at Shadow. Be sure to catch the Hyperspace Beacon, which is up on massively. Goes up every week, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, every Tuesday.
Be sure to check that out. And, of course, right here on the Republic. You guys can follow me at Mike Shaffnet. I do not have a lower third for myself, but if you guys want to follow me at Mike Shaffnet. Be sure to catch Game Breakers, all of Game Breaker's show, and check out Game Breaker TV for all of your MMO-related news. There's a lot of stuff that goes up daily there that everybody's hard at work putting out. So if you guys have not checked it out before, please, please, please go over and do so. Thank you guys so much for watching. Gary Gannon should be back next week. Thank you for letting me fill in for you guys, and I will see you some other time. Thanks for watching. See you next week.